What if everything you've been told about productivity is wrong? What if working longer hours, sacrificing sleep, and glorifying exhaustion is actually the fastest way to do worse work? Not better. Some of the most creative minds in history, writers, scientists, artists, inventors, did not grind endlessly. They worked intensely, yes, but they also rested deliberately. They walked, they napped, they played, and because of that, they produced work that lasted. This is the central idea of Alex Soo-Jung Kim Pang's book Rest. Why you get more done when you work less. It's not a book about laziness or escaping responsibility. It's a book about how rest, when done right, becomes a powerful partner to deep, meaningful work. The problem of rest. The book opens with a paradox. This is a book about work and also a book about rest. Pang argues that we think deeply about how to work better, but almost never about how to rest better. Productivity culture treats rest as a necessary inconvenience, something you endure so you can get back to work. Leisure culture, on the other hand, treats rest as escape, indulgence, or reward. Both views miss the point. We see work and rest as opposites. When we're working, rest feels like failure. When we rest, we feel guilty. Pang challenges this idea and proposes something radical. Rest is not the opposite of work. Rest is work's partner. Throughout history, highly creative people understood this intuitively. They structured their lives around rhythms. Periods of intense focus followed by genuine rest. Their ambition never faded, but their routines evolved to become sustainable. Pang introduces 4 core ideas that guide the entire book. Work and rest are partners. Rest is active, not passive. Rest is a skill that can be learned. Deliberate rest both stimulates and sustains creativity. With this foundation set, the book moves into its first major section. Part 1. Stimulating Creativity. Chapter 1. 4 hours. This chapter challenges one of the most deeply ingrained beliefs of modern productivity culture, that working longer hours automatically leads to better results. Pang shows that this assumption is not just flawed, but historically and scientifically wrong. When we look closely at the daily routines of some of the most influential thinkers in history, people like Charles Darwin, Charles Dickens, Henri Poincaré, and other major figures in science and literature, we find a surprising pattern. They did not work endlessly from morning to night. Instead, they concentrated their most demanding intellectual work into relatively short windows of time, often no more than 3 to 4 hours a day. These hours were not casual or distracted. They were periods of intense, focused effort. During this time, they read deeply, wrote carefully, analyzed complex problems, or experimented with new ideas. Once those hours were over, they deliberately stopped. The rest of the day was not wasted. It was filled with walking, correspondence, social interaction, reading for pleasure, hobbies, and rest. Pang explains that the brain is simply not built for nonstop high-level concentration. Neuroscience shows that cognitive performance peaks for a limited period and then declines sharply. After a few hours of deep focus, attention weakens, decision-making becomes sloppy, and creativity suffers. Extending work beyond this limit may increase time spent at the desk, but it rarely improves the quality of thinking. The lesson of this chapter is not that we should work less carelessly, but that we should work more deliberately. 4 hours of genuine focus can produce more meaningful results than an entire day of fragmented effort. The problem with modern work culture is not that we lack discipline, but that we misunderstand how excellence is actually produced. Chapter 2. Morning Routine. In this chapter, Pang explores why so many creative people structure their days around an early start. Mornings, he argues, offer a unique cognitive advantage. The mind is refreshed, distractions are minimal, and mental energy is at its highest. Historically, many writers, scientists, and artists treated mornings as sacred time. They woke early and began work before the world demanded their attention. Letters, meetings, errands, and social obligations were postponed until later in the day. This was not a matter of rigid discipline or moral superiority, but of strategy. Pang emphasizes that willpower is a limited resource. Every decision, interruption, or emotional interaction drains mental energy. By doing their most important work first, creative individuals ensured that their best thinking was not spent on emails, administration, or minor tasks. Morning routines were rarely identical, but they shared a common purpose: protecting deep work. Some people worked immediately after waking, while others needed a short ritual, a walk, a cup of tea, light reading, to ease into concentration. What mattered was not the ritual itself, but the consistency and respect given to that time. This chapter reminds us that productivity is not about squeezing work into every available hour. It is about placing the most demanding work where it has the highest chance of success. Chapter 3. Walk. Walking occupies a central place in the creative lives Pang describes. Far from being a trivial habit, walking is shown to be a powerful cognitive tool. Many influential thinkers were obsessive walkers. They walked daily, often for long periods and often alone. These walks were not exercises in efficiency or fitness tracking. They were slow, repetitive, and intentionally free of distraction. No notes, no devices, no destination that mattered. Pang explains that walking places the mind in a state that encourages creative insight. The body is engaged just enough to quiet anxious thoughts, while the mind is free to wander. This state of mind wandering allows the brain to form new connections between ideas, revisit problems from different angles, and surface insights that rarely appear during focused effort. Modern research supports this idea. Studies show that walking boosts divergent thinking, the ability to generate novel ideas and solutions. It also improves mood and reduces mental fatigue, making it easier to return to concentrated work afterward. Walking, in this sense, is not a break from thinking. It is a different mode of thinking, one that complements focused work rather than competing with it. Chapter 4. Nap. In this chapter, Pang addresses one of the most misunderstood forms of rest, the daytime nap. In many modern workplaces, napping is seen as laziness or lack of commitment. Historically and scientifically, however, naps play a crucial role in cognitive performance. Many creative individuals treated naps as part of their daily rhythm. These were not long, indulgent sleeps, but short periods of intentional rest. Even a brief nap could restore alertness, improve memory, and reset attention. Pang explains that during sleep, even very short sleep, the brain continues to work. It consolidates information, strengthens learning, and continues processing problems that were left unresolved during waking hours. This is why people often wake from a nap with new clarity or sudden insights. Research shows that naps can improve performance on complex tasks, enhance creativity, and reduce the cognitive effects of fatigue. Rather than stealing time from productivity, naps often give time back by improving the quality of subsequent work. This chapter reframes naps not as a sign of weakness, but as a sophisticated tool for sustaining mental performance. Chapter 5. Stop. The final chapter in this section focuses on an essential but difficult skill: knowing when to stop working. Pang observes that many creative people ended their workdays before exhaustion set in. They did not work until they were completely drained. Instead, they stopped while they still had energy, often leaving a task partially unfinished. This practice served several purposes. First, it made it easier to begin work the next day. Instead of facing a blank page or an undefined problem, they returned to something already in motion. Second, stopping early allowed the subconscious mind to continue working on the problem during rest. Pang explains that creativity does not stop when conscious work ends. When we disengage deliberately, the brain continues to process ideas in the background. For this to happen, however, we must truly stop working. Half working, checking emails, or worrying about unfinished tasks prevents the mind from shifting into this productive resting state. Learning when to stop is not about laziness or lack of ambition. It is about respecting the limits of attention and understanding that insight often arrives after effort, not during endless struggle. This chapter reinforces a central theme of the book: The quality of our work depends not just on how hard we push, but on how wisely we step back. Chapter 6, Sleep. This chapter makes a firm claim. Sleep is not optional maintenance for the brain, but one of its most important forms of work. Pang argues that when we sleep, we are not shutting the mind down. We are giving it the conditions it needs to function at its highest level. During sleep, the brain carries out several critical processes. It consolidates memories formed during the day, strengthening important neural connections while pruning away irrelevant ones. It integrates new information with existing knowledge, which is why ideas often feel clearer after a good night's sleep. Sleep is also when the brain clears out metabolic waste products that accumulate while we are awake, a process essential for long-term cognitive health. Pang emphasizes that creativity depends heavily on these processes. Insight rarely appears fully formed in moments of conscious struggle. Instead, it emerges after the brain has had time to quietly reorganize information in the background. Sleep provides exactly this opportunity. Many people have experienced waking up with a solution to a problem that felt impossible the night before. This is not coincidence. It is the sleeping brain at work. Despite this, modern culture treats sleep as expendable. People brag about sleeping less, as if exhaustion were proof of ambition. Pang shows how dangerous this attitude is. Chronic sleep deprivation impairs attention, weakens judgment, reduces emotional control, and severely limits creative thinking. Over time, even small deficits accumulate, making it harder to learn, adapt, and produce original ideas. Creative figures of the past often guarded their sleep carefully. They structured their workdays to ensure that nights were protected, not sacrificed. They understood that without sleep, effort becomes inefficient and insight becomes rare. Pang's conclusion is uncompromising. If sleep is neglected, everything else, focus, discipline, and talent, suffers. Part 2. Sustaining Creativity. Chapter 7. Recovery. In this chapter, Pang broadens the discussion from daily rest to long-term recovery. Recovery is the process that allows creative effort to remain sustainable across months, years, and even decades. Pang draws a powerful analogy between creative workers and athletes. No elite athlete trains at maximum intensity every day without rest. Training programs are built around cycles of exertion and recovery because performance improves during recovery, not during strain. Creative work follows the same principle, yet most people ignore it. Without proper recovery, mental stress accumulates. Fatigue becomes the baseline. Work that once felt exciting begins to feel burdensome. Pang stresses that burnout is not a personal failure or lack of resilience. It is the predictable outcome of sustained effort without restoration. Recovery can take many forms. It may involve lighter workdays, genuine weekends free from professional obligations, or short breaks that are respected rather than filled with errands and digital distractions. What matters is intention. Recovery only works when it truly reduces cognitive load. This chapter reframes rest as preventive care. Rather than waiting until exhaustion forces us to stop, Pang argues that recovery should be built into life deliberately, preserving both health and creativity. Chapter 8. Exercise. Exercise, Pang argues, is one of the most misunderstood components of rest. Many people view physical activity as something that competes with mental work for time and energy. In reality, it supports and strengthens the mind. Historically, many creative individuals engaged in demanding physical activities. They walked long distances, worked in gardens, trained for endurance sports, or pursued physically challenging hobbies. These activities were not distractions from intellectual work. They were part of a larger system that kept both body and mind resilient. Exercise improves mood, sharpens attention, and increases overall energy levels. It also enhances neuroplasticity, helping the brain form new connections and adapt to challenges. Over time, regular physical activity protects against cognitive decline and supports long creative careers. There's also a psychological dimension to exercise. Physical effort grounds abstract thinking, providing relief from constant mental self-evaluation. Progress is tangible, feedback is immediate, and success is defined by effort rather than outcome. This balance helps counter the ambiguity and pressure of creative work. Pang's key point is that rest does not always mean stillness. Sometimes the most effective way to rest the mind is to move the body. Chapter 9, Deep Play. This chapter introduces the concept of deep play, activities that are immersive, challenging, and deeply satisfying. Deep play is not passive entertainment or casual distraction. It requires focus, skill, and emotional engagement. Pang shows that many creative people devoted serious time to pursuits entirely unrelated to their professional work. They played musical instruments, built furniture, cooked complex meals, climbed mountains, or competed in sports. These activities were chosen not for productivity, but for meaning. Deep play restores creative energy by engaging different mental and emotional systems than work. It provides challenge without professional pressure, improvement without deadlines, and identity beyond career success. This separation is crucial for long-term motivation and psychological health. Pang emphasizes that deep play must be personally meaningful to be effective. The value lies not in copying someone else's hobby, but in finding activities that fully absorb attention and provide intrinsic satisfaction. Through deep play, creative people maintained curiosity, resilience, and joy across long and demanding careers. Chapter 10, Sabbaticals. This chapter examines rest on the largest scale, extended breaks from routine work, often lasting months or longer. Pang argues that sabbaticals play a crucial role in renewing creative lives. Sabbaticals provide what shorter breaks cannot: distance. Distance from daily obligations, constant decision-making, and habitual patterns of thought. This space allows ideas to mature, perspectives to shift, and new interests to emerge. Historically, sabbaticals have been associated with major breakthroughs. Writers, scientists, and scholars often produce their most important work after extended periods away from routine demands. These breaks were not escapes from work, but investments in future work. Pang makes it clear that sabbaticals are not ordinary vacations. They are intentional periods of freedom, often structured around exploration, study, or experimentation rather than rest alone. The chapter concludes with a long-term perspective. Creativity is not a sprint, and careers are not races against time. Without extended rest, even the most driven individuals eventually exhaust their creative reserves. Sabbaticals ensure that creativity remains renewable rather than finite. The restful life. Pang concludes by reframing success. Long hours and constant busyness may look impressive, but they rarely produce lasting excellence. A restful life is not an easy life. It's a life organized around meaningful work and deliberate rest. It values depth over speed, sustainability over burnout, and creativity over mere output. The message is clear. Rest is not something you earn after work. It's something you need in order to do great work at all. If you learn to rest well, you don't just protect your energy, you unlock your best thinking. That's the quiet power of rest.